Hello and welcome to the fifth and final video discussing Chapter 11 of Government in America. We are talking about Congress, and in this video specifically we're going to talk about the Senate. The Senate was originally designed to be less responsive to the people because its members were selected by state legislators and not by the people themselves. That changed when the Constitution was amended to allow direct election of senators, but because senators have 6-year terms, they're still sort of meant to be a little more insulated from public opinion. If they have to make a decision, they can kind of wait for things to cool down a little bit if the decision is unpopular. The senators are divided up into 3 groups, and every 2 years, one of those 3 groups is up for re-election. So every 2 years, 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election. So there's no gerrymandering in the Senate because the Senate is based on state borders, and every state gets 2 senators regardless of population. But there can be some distortions in the election results, and that's based on the size of the states and also a little bit on the timing of the elections. States can vary wildly in population, but each has the same number of senators. Delaware has the same number of senators as California, even though their populations are wildly different. So in a smaller state, it takes a smaller number of voters to swing the seat one way or the other. And a party that is popular in a lot of small states can win more seats than their raw numbers would suggest. Now this does affect both parties. Here's some examples of Republicans winning in large states and small states, and you see the difference in the number of votes that it took. Same for Democrats. Again, this does affect both parties to a degree, but we're in a state right now at this point in time where a lot of those small states do tend to be more likely to support Republicans, which is one reason why you get results such as you can see from this table. This is the last 3 Senate elections, 2012, 2014, and 2016. And you can see the number of votes that each party got and the percentage of the 2-party vote. So the total does not reflect independents or third-party votes. This is just people who voted for either the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate. You can see that the Democratic candidates, if you add up those 3 elections in total, they got more votes. They got 54% of the 2-party vote. The Republican Party got 46%. But which side controls more seats? The Republicans. They have control of 52 seats in the Senate. The Democrats have 46, plus there are 2 independent senators who caucus or side with the Democrats. That's a result of different populations for different states, each state electing 2 senators. You can get results like this. There are also some distortions brought into play by the timing of elections. Remember, each seat is up every 6 years. That means that a seat that is up for election in a presidential year now, whoever gets elected, they'll be up for re-election in a midterm election year. Vice versa, if you get elected in a midterm year, you'll be next up for re-election in a presidential year. We talked in the House video about how the electorates in a midterm election are a little bit different than the electorates in a presidential election. So that can sort of tip the balance a little bit in terms of who's successful when in a particular election. So it is something to keep in mind when figuring out, well, why does this party have control versus that party? The type of election has a lot to do with it. As the Constitution says, the Vice President is the presiding officer, but it's the majority leader who really has the day-to-day power, who decides whether to bring things up. But the minority party does tend to have a little bit more influence in the Senate than it does in the House of Representatives. In part, this is because Senate rules and traditions rely on unanimous consent, on the leader saying, hey, can we move on to this next thing? Does everybody agree that we can just move on to the next thing and not spend a lot of time on it? Well, if one person says, no, I want to spend a lot of time on it, then you can chew up the time. You can chew up the energy of the Senate and stop something from happening. The biggest example of this is the filibuster. A small group of senators can say, we would like to wait to vote on this bill and have more debate. So let's say there's a bill and 55 out of 100 senators like it. The other 45 senators can say, well, we don't want to vote on it yet. We want to debate it more. And so the majority can say, well, look, we're done talking about it. We're ready to vote. They can ask for what's called cloture. But a cloture vote needs 3/5 of the Senate to approve it. You need 60 senators to say, yes, we can stop talking and we can vote on the bill. So you need 60 votes before you can hold the vote where 51 votes would be enough to pass. That means that 41 senators can stop a bill from passing, which gives a minority party a lot more say. Now, the filibuster has been weakened in recent years. It used to be that the minority party could filibuster the president's appointments to the cabinet, to the courts, and so on and so forth. And the Republicans, who were a minority in the Senate up until the 2014 elections, were using that power to try and slow down or stop President Obama from making appointments. And so the Senate Majority Leader finally got so tired of that he and the Democrats made some changes and said that now you can't filibuster appointments to the executive branch, and you can't filibuster appointments to the court except for the Supreme Court. So now in 2017, where Donald Trump's been elected president and the Republicans have control of Congress, now the Democrats don't have any way that they could stop or slow down. Well, they can slow down, but they can't stop the appointments that President Trump wants to make. So this is, you sort of see how there's a give and take between minority and majority power. And right now on appointments, the Senate has gone a little bit more towards giving the majority more power and taking it away from the minority. It will be interesting to see over the next few years whether the filibuster continues to get weakened, whether it goes away for laws, whether it goes away for the Supreme Court, but we'll see how that goes. So that's going to wrap up this discussion of the Senate, and with that, our discussion of Congress. In Chapter 12, we'll be talking about the presidency, but until then, take care.